Hello, my name is Brian Sprague, and this is my presentation on my Day of Compassion. So to start, I'll just start off with my definition of compassion, and I think there's like three main parts to compassion. It's being empathetic towards others, having empathy, being respectful of others. Respect's a big part of it, and then this third part, I think that most people might not include it, but I think it's really important towards acting compassionately. It's knowing when to leave someone alone. And the reason I include this is because a lot of times, I'll talk about it more later, but a lot of times just like checking in on someone, if you're constantly doing it, it can come off as a little superficial or a little just you're doing it for yourself. And I'll talk about this more later, but I just wanted to include that because I think it's important to know when you're doing too much towards someone. So for my Day of Compassion, some of the recipients of my compassion included the Marist College Swipe It Forward program. And basically what this is if you have at the end of the semester any meal swipes left over, you can donate them. You can just donate any number of meal swipes. They'll take anything to Marist, and then what they'll do with them is they'll spread them out to students in need, anyone that can't afford maybe meals or just they're struggling with their financial situation. Also, people affected my roommates, obviously, because I live with them. So they were a big big part of my Day of Compassion. And the people across the hall from me, we hung out with them a little bit, so they were part of my day. So I was acting compassionately towards them. So what prevents me from acting compassionately every day? Well, I'm generally a very shy person. It's hard for me to break out of my bubble, and this is why it's a side note here. But I really enjoyed the way that our class was set up with how we volunteered in groups and then the randomly called on. And because I also avoid talking to people I don't know. So like I would have never spoken to anyone in this class if it wasn't for that, like just getting like, okay, you're a group with this person. So I would then talk with that person. So like that's just something I would have never done. So like I like that. But like those two things, I don't really talk to people that aren't my friends. And then the third part is I try to be polite. I think I'm very polite in all my interactions. And something that I thought of, like a nice analogy for this, kind of like a staircase. Like if being polite is like that first step on the staircase, and then compassion is like that second step. I don't always reach that second step. I think generally every day I'll be on that first step. But like during my Day of Compassion, I tried very hard, and I think I succeeded in reaching that second step, if to use my analogy, that I think is pretty good. So the costs versus benefits of acting compassionately. So something that like maybe a lot of introverts know, like it's called like the social battery. And basically like if you spend a lot of energy, like if you spend most of your day talking to like other people and being in like social interactions, it can take a lot of energy, and you just want to like almost recharge by like just going and being by yourself in your room or something like that. So that's a cost, like spending social energy. And the other cost that I wrote about is altruism versus egoism. And what both these are, they're both forms of pro-social behavior. And what pro-social behavior is just any behavior that can benefit someone else. And so altruism and egoism are kind of like two branches of this. So altruism is you're doing this compassionate act or this just beneficial act towards anyone, excuse me, just purely to help them. It's you're not doing it for any point of like personal gain. And then egoism is kind of the opposite. It's you're seeking out this person to help, or you're helping this person purely for selfish reasons, like either to like remove guilt or just to like check a box that like, oh, I helped someone today. So because like if you're constantly acting compassionately, it could kind of seem like you're just doing it for these selfish reasons, just to say that you did or just to make yourself feel better. So that's why it can be a cost to acting compassionately every day. So some of the benefits, I found that I'll talk about this more on the next slide, but people act more compassionately towards you if you act compassionately towards someone else. So another thing that I found was a benefit was social cognition. And basically what social cognition is how we like select and like choose behaviors based on like what we see from other people. So it's like if we see everyone's acting compassionately towards other people, we're then going to act compassionately towards other people. Like just like you kind of like observe and then act what you observed, kind of like that. And then the third benefit that I found was it can actually increase group cohesiveness if the whole group is acting compassionately. And what group cohesiveness is, basically it's like one trait or one characteristic of a group, and if it kind of just brings the group closer together. So like if everyone in the group is acting compassionately towards each other, it's just going to tighten that group even more. So the response to my compassion that I found during the day, I asked my friends at the end of the day, I said, like, did you notice like anything different about me today? And they thought I was just like being more polite than usual, which I guess they didn't use the word compassion, but like, maybe it's not a common word to use. So like to use that, like the staircase analogy again, like they thought I was like on like that extra step, but they didn't call that extra step compassion. They just called it extra polite, like to say. So like, and I think that's because like an overly compassionate day, it's not too different from my normal day. Obviously, I'm not compassionate every day. I'm polite every day. So like again, using that staircase, I'm on that first step every day. So this day, I was on that second step. They just didn't know what to call it. And then something I noticed during the day, we actually went and played basketball, me and some of my friends, and I got an injury. It wasn't bad. It's just like a little scrape right here, but it was bleeding for a little bit. It was bleeding. So, and what I noticed was that my friends were acting really compassionate towards me, and this was around like 3-4 o'clock. So I had already been acting compassionately for a good portion of the day. And this brings me to the just world hypothesis. And the just world hypothesis states that like basically you get what you deserve and you deserve what you've already gotten. And so I'm not saying that I deserve the injury that I got, the cut that I got. I'm not saying I did that. I'm not saying that. That would be using it like a little too far. But what I'm saying is that since I had been acting compassionately during the day, I then deserved compassionate acts towards me. And so that came in people like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I was like, yes, this is a small cut. So, but like, that's basically like what I was like, and it goes back along with like previous points. Like if you act compassionately, people are going to see that, and then they're going to act more compassionately in their life as well. And so now the final part, the conversation that I spoke with another student at Marist College, another junior. I'm a junior, if you didn't know. So what this student was different for me is that they relied on financial aid a lot. And what happened was their mother actually worked at here at Marist, and then during the pandemic, she was laid off, and he was receiving free tuition because he had a parent working here. And she was laid off before his junior year. So they ruled, what Marist College said is they would extend his free tuition this semester. And then they decided not to extend it to next year. So now he's on the hook for a lot of money. And they gave him a few options, but it's hard. It's hard for someone with a poor financial standing. It's hard for them to scrounge up money like this. And so I have never struggled like to the extent that he is financially. So it's hard for me to fully put myself in his shoes. And I try to be compassionate towards him, but it's hard to be just like fully like understanding of what he's going through. And I asked him, do you think people act compassionately towards you in your everyday life? And what he said that really stuck with me was he said he does, and he thinks that people are very compassionate towards him, but that he actually grows tired of the constant sympathy that is given to him. And that's why I included that first part not for the third part of my definition, which was knowing when to leave someone alone. And that's because if people are constantly being reminded of their struggling, like where they're struggling or a part that's hard in their life, it can be very annoying, and they might just want to stop thinking about it for a little bit. And so I'm sure he doesn't want to think about his financial stability all the time, and he just wants to live his life. And people keep being like, have you figured this out yet? And he doesn't know yet. So that's something that like it could be hard, and that's why I included that in my definition. And so I think this conversation that I had really helped me realize that there's this other layer of compassion that many people don't see. So that was basically the summary of my day of compassion. I hope you enjoyed listening to it, and thank you for the great semester.